What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the farm. Travis here. It is mid-March here, and a lot of people tend to have the idea that whenever we don't have gardens in the ground that there's not a lot going on around here. That is not the case. There is stuff to be done all year long here on the farm, and today we are getting firewood ready for next year. March and April is generally when we like to put the work in to get the firewood ready for the next year. That way it has, most of the year. It has several months there, 6-7 months to season and dry before we need to have it in the fireplace. So today, that's what we're doing. Let's go. So we are already, there's Crockett, the rooster. So we are already into the firewood collection for next year process. Usually March and April is when we focus heavily on firewood collection for the next winter. And so here's a white oak that I had sawed down back when we were building the barn. So I need to come through. I've been working on sawing this up a little bit at a time and splitting it, but I'm really going to have to get this thing sawed up and get it out of the weather. It is starting to have some rot and decay happening here on the outer edge, so I'm losing a little bit of the usable firewood, but I need to get this sawed up and moved, get it out of the way, because this is kind of a travel corridor here that we use, and it's taking up the space and we can't get through. So I need to try to get this sawed up today and tomorrow and get it moved over into the woodshed so I can get it split and start drying out. So here you can see what I've already got split. So I've only sawed off like maybe 5 or 6 rounds and been splitting them. So I do have a little bit of waste that I'm having to throw into either the burn ring or into the compost bin, depending on what the condition of it is. But we're getting started on the firewood here for that, for at least for next year. And on the other side of the woodshed back behind me, there is probably 4 times this much already stacked up, ready to go. So looking forward to getting enough firewood to get us through next year or longer, and going ahead and having that done and out of the way so it can be drying and seasoning all spring, summer, and fall. Golly. Come on, man. There it goes. Well, we managed to get that tree all busted up, and I did not split it all the way down into the size that I need for the fireplace yet, because I just really wanted to get it busted up so that it could be drying out. It's been laying out in the weather all winter long. The edge that had the whole perimeter of it was starting to rot and just holding moisture. So I wanted to get it busted up and stacked in here so it could start drying out. But it's a bunch of white oak there. There is still another probably 16-foot section log down there in the woods that I need to go drag out to work up later, but I'll have to get to that in a little bit. So just to show you though, chickens here behind me. Crockett. So that's all the white oak that we just busted up. That I busted it. The wife moved it over here with that small wheelbarrow there. It was a little too much for her to use the big wheelbarrow. And then over here, I've got, let me back that out a little bit where you can see it. I got a bunch of walnut that we got last year. And I am trying to make a video, Crockett. Ah, man. So I got a bunch of walnut there on top. Down in the bottom, there is some cherry that I also got last year. And then, well, my battery died here as I was doing this. And I spun around to show you the chickens because they were right up here on the roof carrying on. Well, guess what? Now they're up on the roof here above me. So they are just, they're wanting some screen time today. So what I was saying was, here on top is a bunch of walnut. Seriously, are you going to sit here and crow now that I'm doing the video? Seriously? Don't you do it. Seriously. These things. Anyway, that's a bunch of black walnut there on top. So this was a tree that had blown over during a storm last summer over at my parents' house. And Dad asked me to come. It wasn't really big enough to take and mill. So I was like, all right, well, he was saying just to get rid of it, but Dad always had the impression that black walnut didn't make good firewood. Well, when I looked it up, it has a really good heat value. Now, yes, the bark is pretty much useless, and there is a large amount of bark there that is going to create a lot of ash as compared to, some other different varieties. Like you look down here, like there's a cherry log right there on top. Not a lot of bark there. You're probably generally going to get a little bit less ash left over from burning it than you would that. Same thing here with all this white oak. What I'm going to do later is I'm going to go through when I go to clean this all up for actually, firewoods or fireplace size, chunks. I'm going to cut all that rotten stuff off the end, off the edge. That way I don't have to worry about that. It's not going to burn good. It's just going to smolder, create a bunch of ash. I got to clean the fireplace out more often, and I'd rather not deal with that. As you see down here on bottom, I've got several rounds of hickory here on the front. I still have, I think, 4 hickory logs that I need to go work up over there. I've got them covered with some tin. It is just so blasted hard to split that I'm just kind of taking my time working my way through it, because that stuff, the grain in it just twists and turns, and it's bitternut hickory is what it is. And it is, so there is some shag bark. Let's see. None of the shag bark, maybe right there. That may be a shag bark or 2 right there. But most of this over here, there may be a shag bark down there on bottom. But a lot of this is a bitternut hickory, and that grain just twists and turns, burns incredibly hot, burns really well, but it takes a lot of effort to split unless you have a log splitter. I am my log splitter, so that's how I'm having to do it, and it just takes quite a while to get it all done. All right, so speaking of log splitters and what I'm using, so here's what I've been using. This is just a I believe is an 8-pound maul. I need to weigh it. It had weights on it at one time. This is just a hand-me-down. My dad passed it down to me. It's one he used for many, many years. The tip of it here was just rolled and curled, and I had to get the bench grinder out back of this and at least get an edge on it. These chickens, golly. I had to get an edge on it. And once I did that, I was able to bust my way through quite a bit more easily. You probably noticed in some of those clips when I was trying to bust that white oak over here, it took several hits on it to get it to bust through. That is partially because, like I said, this log has laid out in the weather for months now, and it got wet. And then we had, over a week of cold, below average temperatures that caused it to freeze in the middle. And so as I'm trying to bust it, you could actually see when I sawed through it, it's not the best to saw through frozen wood. I didn't know the log was frozen necessarily when I was doing it, but I had to do what I had to do. You get it sawed, and then when I would roll those rounds over there, you would then see it kind of start to glaze over, kind of ice over, where it was starting to freeze, and the moisture in the air was starting to freeze on the center of the round. So it took several, hits of the maul there before it actually began to try to bust apart on me. But I picked up something new the other day that I am going to try. I didn't try it on this wild oak, but I will be starting to use it here on some of this walnut and other stuff. And I'll go get it and I'll show it to you now. All right, so I picked up something the other day thinking that it might help make my life of splitting firewood a little bit easier. And here it is. So I got a Fisker's splitting axe. This is the 28-inch. I think they make a 36-inch. They recommend the 36-inch be for people who are like, 6 foot tall or 6'2" or tall or whatever. I am not that. So at 5'8", they actually recommended that I get the 28-inch. So I picked that up. I can't remember if this is a 4-pound or a 4.5 pound. I'm looking at it, but it is almost half the weight of that old maul that I've been using up there. This also has a lifetime warranty on it. I've been seeing a lot of positive things about Fiskars. I have a Fiskars small hatchet that I use a lot of times to split my cedar kindling with. Works incredibly well. Super sharp right out of the box. This thing is as well. This thing, I just played with it when it got delivered, and it is very sharp right out of just coming straight to the house. We'll see how that holds up. Typically when I split my firewood, I set my log on top of another log, so I'm not generally busting into the ground. Now, earlier today when you saw those clips with me using that maul, I was, just because those rounds were so heavy that, it was taking a lot to lift them up and put them on top of another one to bust. So I just started trying to bust it, and I can get more power. When it comes to trying to bust with that maul, the more velocity I can get on the downswing, then the more power I have to bust through it. So the lower that was on the ground, then the more vertical distance I have to generate more downforce energy to try to bust through that. But looking forward to giving this a try. Like I said, didn't use it on the white oak, but I'm going to give it a try on the other smaller stuff that I got up there, and I may even make a separate video on that, just so that way you can get a little bit of feedback on how it works. All right, so I mentioned the Fiskars hatchet. Here it is. This thing has been incredible for me to use when I'm trying to bust my or split up and chop up real finely my cedar kindling. I mean, I can just hold little chunks, 6-8 inches, hold them down there, and then this just slices right through it. Is it the safest to hold it while slicing it? No, not really. But I have so much control over this, especially with my gloves on and stuff, that I'm not really worried about it. But this thing has, I guess I've had this now for 3 or 4 years, and it's working like a charm. So I can drop a link down below for anybody who's looking to check these out. That way you can go look at them, see if it's anything you're interested in. But I'll probably do a separate video on that splitting axe, just to kind of give you a little bit more feedback on how it works, because it is dramatically different than anything I've ever used before with that composite handle. I mean, I'm curious to see how that's going to feel, the hand feel whenever I strike pretty good sized rounds trying to bust them up. But we'll do that in another video. All right, well, that's probably going to be it for this video here. Just wanted to show you that, even though we don't have gardens in the ground, there is always something going on. And like I said, we just choose to do the Firewood Collection every year in March and April, because we generally don't have to have another fire until, say, November the following year. So that gives us anywhere from 7 to 8 months, really, give or take, for this wood to season and fully dry. Generally, so like the hickory that's over there, that was actually sawed down, as of this point right now, that was sawed down 16 months ago. So it's been on the ground for a long time. It's going to be busted up dry. I don't ever split green wood. I let it age and dry before I even start sawing it into rounds to start trying to bust it up. So most anything I've burned has been dead for at least 2 years. And I like to let it dry and season for at least 6, 7, 8 months before I even start trying to burn it after that. So anyway, that's it for this video. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you're up to. I wish you the best. These chickens are over here wanting to be on camera again. Man, what a mess. Anyway, that's it. Look forward to talking to you next time. Wish you a wonderful spring. Happy gardening. God bless. Seriously. Are you going to sit here and crow now that I'm doing the video? Seriously? Don't you do it. Seriously.